We have made it to the final week, and we are chuckling our way through it, I think. But we have looked at a number of stories from the life of Jesus, and are just touching the surface of his life. But I hope that the stories that we've looked at, the stories that we've worked through, have been beneficial, that you've had opportunity to process them a little bit more, and opportunity to use them. So last 2 weeks we were in Matthew 15, the Canaanite woman and the feeding of the 4,000. And this week we're moving to Matthew 16. We jump over a story. Jesus is tested by the Sadducees and then has this interesting conversation with the disciples. And then we come to where we're at. So Matthew 16, 13 through 20. And this is our story. Now Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi. And there he asked his disciples, "Who do people say I am?" The disciples responded, Some people say you're John the Baptist. Others, Elijah. And others still say Jeremiah or one of the prophets. Now Jesus asks the disciples, "But you, who do you say that I am?" And Simon Peter answers, it says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus says to Peter, "Peter, son of Jonah, you are blessed, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. I also say that you are Peter, the rock, which I will build my church on. I will also give you the keys to heaven, and what you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and what you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Now Jesus gave orders to the disciples that they were to tell no one that he was the Messiah. And that's the end of our story. So as we've done every week, who are the characters in our story?
Jesus and the disciples, specifically Peter.
Yeah. So we kind of have this interaction, just Jesus and the disciples, and then Jesus and Peter, right? What kind of takes place in this story, if you were kind of going to summarize it?
Well, the disciples are trying to figure out how to respond when people say that who they think the Son of Man is. And then Jesus wants to know who they think he is, instead of what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, and I guess my wording, Jesus in the first question, who do people say the Son of Man is? And then the second question, who do you say that I am?
Yeah.
Well, why do you think he would word those questions differently? What do you think? Because he kind of goes from saying, he's talking about himself in third person to talking about himself in first person.
maybe he, like, because Son of Man was this expectation, like, it came with all these expectations of who he was going to be. Maybe he was asking the disciples it specifically so that they could say who, like, they had found him to be, instead of, like, what they had heard he was supposed to be.
Yeah. Now, what do you think of Peter's answer?
It's very simple, but
Yeah.
I think at the same time it holds, like, a lot of, like, the Messiah and Son of the living God holds a lot of weight. It's not just like, you're Jesus. What comes with it is so much more. And I think he uses, like, two of the words that really summarize who Jesus is and who he was sent to earth to be.
Yeah, it's definitely a profound statement, and I think we see that reflected in Jesus' answer to him, because obviously even Jesus sees Peter's response to the question as significant. What do you think of Jesus' answer?
I think he is saying that, like, it's something, like, the way he responds to Peter, like, the first part of what he says, he's saying, like, I didn't tell you this, and so clearly this is something that you heard from my Father. And then, like, in that, he, like, tells Peter, like, he shows them that he has such confidence in who he is, and, like, he trusts him so much that he wants to use him to build his church, which is pretty big.
Yeah. What out of this story is significant for us?
That, like, when we are sharing who Jesus is with people, like, I think our natural tendency is to think we have to have some elaborate description and use very, very specific words and things like that, but, like, when Peter was talking to Jesus himself, he used a phrase that was so simple, so that in the times that we are sharing the gospel with people, or just even if they've never heard the name Jesus, like, if we're trying to describe him, it doesn't have to be a 45-minute long conversation. It can just be a simple phrase like that, and then we can elaborate on that.
And you kind of already answered this, so maybe kind of answered the what about for other people. But there's definitely a significant theme in this story, just thinking about what we think of Jesus, how we process through who he is. And that's why I use this as the last story in our set, just because we've worked through all of these stories about Jesus, about these incredible things that he's done, these things that he's said. But ultimately it comes back to what we truly think and believe about who he is. And so definitely an opportunity to reflect on that and kind of hear Jesus even ask us, who do you say that I am? So that's our story. I hope that these stories have meant something. I know that I've had opportunities to share these stories even in different settings outside of our time making videos. So, yeah, we'll continue to work through who Jesus is and pray that he gives us opportunity to grow in our understanding of who we say he is.